Yes.
Yep. Perfect. Okay. So we're going to talk all things policies. So essentially, it is our responsibility as hosts to know the Airbnb policies or Airbnb terms of service. So we don't have to necessarily memorize their Airbnb terms of service in and out, but we do have to have a general idea of their policies so that we don't accidentally break their policy, which broken policies can result in listings being suspended, investigated, shut down, or completely removed from the platform. So, we had a good conversation last week. I believe it was Dana that was talking about, at one point we were chatting about their age policy, and service animals. So those are big ones that I just find it so beneficial to continuously review. With that said, you guys, policies can change and they are subject to change at any time. Typically, Airbnb will send out an email to hosts when there is a major policy change that needs to be addressed by hosts, or that usually the host has to take action of some sort. So, um, we're going to go over some of the big ones because there's been some big policy changes this year in 2025. And then we're going to go over some of the classics that you should really make sure you're familiar with. So, first things first, this is like such a hot topic right now. If you have not yet heard about the new fee change, the new fee policy, this is probably the biggest one. So I will make sure I have the right document here to share with you guys. Okay, I think this is the right one. So I'm gonna share my screen just so you can follow along with me as I chat. So Airbnb's the big one, like I just mentioned, is on October 27th, there's going to be an Airbnb fee change where the host is going to be the one taking on the entire fee. Previously, it used to be the fees used to be split between the guest and the host. When I say fees, I mean the Airbnb service fee. So Airbnb essentially charges hosts and previously hosts and guests a commission for listing on their travel agency. They do the marketing. So that used to it used to have be an option for the host to take on either all of the fee or split the fee with the guest. Now, effective October 27th, the entire fee will be on the host. There will be no fee, service fee for the guest. So I'm going to show you guys just kind of what that looks like from a traveler. And I'm going to kind of do my best to explain the reasoning behind this. And I want you guys to know this is really not a bad thing. I think a lot of people are kind of overreacting and getting all scared because of a change, but we have to be adaptable. And the more adaptable we are, the more knowledgeable we are, the more educated we are, the less scary these changes feel. But so when you're a guest going to book on Airbnb, you see all price, the total nightly rate included. I'm trying to see where that little blurb is. It usually says total nightly rate, but it's not. So anyway, this number right here, 617 for 2 nights, this used to, believe it was back in 2024, don't quote me on that. I don't remember when this change went. This used to just demonstrate the nightly rate. So if the nightly rate was 300 approximately, it would have been 300 right here. And then the guest would go to reserve and see a bigger nightly rate. So a big change this year was to have all-inclusive pricing. And the cleaning fee is no longer a broken down line item. So a guest does not know what you are paying your cleaners or what you are charging for cleaning. It's all wrapped up into this bundled rate that the guest is seeing right here. And same with your pet fee, that's bundled in here. If you've got any other management fees, extra guest fees, this one isn't a good example because they don't have extra guest fees, but it will be wrapped up into here pending the guest has the right amount of guests on their reservation. So this is an all-inclusive total nightly rate price. Now, pretending again I'm a guest, I go in and I can see how I'd like to pay. And then on the side over here, it's telling us the price details, and it is breaking down the nightly rate and the taxes. And if you click price breakdown right here, the guests can still see the Airbnb service fee that they are being charged. And then that's how they get to the total, the 677.51. So let's even go back again. So you can see where, from a guest experience, it's a bit misleading to think, oh, I'm going to pay $617 and then go to reserve and be like, wait a minute, it's 677. I guess this would be what the tax is. So they do, I'm sorry, let me correct myself. They do right now add the service fee into this nightly rate. It's just taxes right now that are not added. So essentially, they are already in on this part of the booking page not seeing that guest service fee. So with this new change, there's this little drop down right here is not going to be available. The guests aren't going to see an Airbnb service fee. This is just going to be all taken on by the host. Okay, so I'm going to stop for a second because I feel like I just said a lot of things, and leave room for questions while I grab a drink. So drop in the chat or unmute if anyone has any questions so far.
Hi, Emily.
Hey, Shreya.
Thank you for taking on this topic.
Yep.
So, what you mentioned, like the guests won't be able to see that service fee. So, does that mean as host, if we are paying, we have to adjust the prices accordingly?
Yes. Yep. So we're going to get to that. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go over all of that. But the short answer is yes. Yep.
So you're
So
going to show us, Emily, how Airbnb does it, because I don't have an Airbnb account yet. So I
yep.
don't know how the numbers go in.
Yes. Yeah, I can show you that. And it's all going to depend what softwares you utilize. I'll be able to show you based off of using a property management system and a Price Labs. With that said, keep in mind, you guys, this effect is only going to impact hosts who are connected. They call it API connected, or essentially connected to a property management system. So think Hospitable is an API connected property management system, Hostaway, Guesty, all of the different property management systems. So if you're hooked up to a property management system, this change is rolling out to those hosts first. This is where people all over the internet are losing their heads because they're saying, well, that's not fair. Hosts who only, have one property and don't use a property management system, they're still going to show like they're cheaper. And it eventually, as of I think December 1st, the change is going to roll out to every single host who lists on the platform. So don't fret. And at the end of the day, as long as you adjust your pricing appropriately, you're still going to be just fine, even compared to the hosts who are not connected to an API system, property management system. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my document and make sure I don't forget anything here. Okay, so we already went over this, but for property management system connected hosts, Airbnb is going to move to the single host only fee, and that's going to be 15.5%. Unless you're in Brazil, it's 16%. I don't know why. Previously, many of us had the host guest fee split where the host was being charged 3% of the gross revenue of the booking, which includes revenue from the cleaning, revenue from pet fees, and revenue from the nightly rate. That's where that 3% commission was being pulled from, and the guest was paying 16.5. Oh yeah, 16.5%. So what's happening? Again, I'm just repeating myself because sometimes I feel like it takes hearing something multiple times for it to really stick. The guest fee is going to be removed. Airbnb will be deducting 15.5% from the host payout, and the fee is applied to the booking subtotal, which is your nightly rate, and then any added fees like pet fees. It's not going to be a commission on top of the taxes that are charged. All right, so what is your action as a host? And that's like the pressing question, right? What do I do about this? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna mark up your Airbnb pricing so payouts stay the same. Um, so okay, I don't think I'm gonna go over this exact example. I think I'm just going to tactically show you guys how to do this. So essentially, what you're going to do is you are going to go into Hospitable. Okay. So this is only going to apply to people who are connected to Hospitable. You are going to go into your settings, I believe, and then you're going to drop down to your properties. And this is where you can mark up your rates. So if you have a markup here, right now, I have a 3% markup so that I can account for that 3% host fee that I'm being charged. You can change it to 15.5%. And then at the end of the day, the rates are going to be the same for the guest, whether they were taking on the fee or the host is taking on the entire fee. Okay. So you're connected to Hospitable. You are connected to Price Labs. Okay. Oh, it's going to be too slow for me to do that. And you're going to do everything the same in Price Labs. You're going to set your pricing. And then since Price Labs is connected to Hospitable, this markup is going to show in your Airbnb calendar. So let me show you guys. If I switch to hosting and I'm going to jump over to a calendar and I'm just going to show what that looks like when you have a markup. So, let's do, how do I want to demonstrate this? Let's go to my Hospitable calendar. And I'm going to show you guys. Okay, so we're going to look at Sunday, October 4th. And if we go to Sunday, October 4th, you can see right here, my nightly rate is $270. It should be, did I click the right date, guys? Did I click it? Nope, I clicked the wrong date. Okay, so I was looking at, why is this not lining up? Saturday, October 4th, 270, 226. Actually, this is not pushing out accurately. So let me check something. 206, 246. So actually, you guys, the rates that are showing in my Airbnb calendar should be 3% higher. Actually, let's check this. Sorry, so many things have changed lately that sometimes it can be tricky to demonstrate that. I'm not sure why my Siri just turned on. Okay. Well, essentially, I think that the 3% is already 3% markup is already reflecting in this
That's October 5th. You were doing
price.
October 4th.
Yep, but I've already checked each date. So 270,
Oh.
270, 226. Yeah. So it should show us over here. It normally does. Okay, let me try hovering. There we go. Okay, so this is where you can usually see it. I don't know, you guys. I will have to take a look at why it's reflecting differently, but essentially, if you have the markup, it will push that out to Airbnb, so your rates on Airbnb will reflect that markup. I don't have an example for you right now at this moment because sometimes life happens, but that's what it will look like. Okay, so questions about how to do the markup in Hospitable. Let's pause there.
I guess the question is just waiting until that October 27th specific date, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, so October 27th is the date that that change is going to happen. So make sure you're ready to go in and do the markup. And then once you have that markup pushed out, this will apply to any bookings made from October 27th and onward. So you should be all set. And it's
So
really
anybody that booked before that in January of 2026, that the system still stays the same. You'll be only paying 3% Airbnb.
Yeah, as far as I understand, it should stay. I think that would be incredibly a huge problem if they suddenly decided to take 15%. The guest in many instances has already paid for
Yeah.
the reservation anyway. We will see. I hope that that's correct, but that's from everything.
I would think it must be, I would.
Yeah, I think so too. So, we'll keep our fingers crossed, but it should be how it is. So,
Uh,
mhm, go ahead,
yeah,
Shreya.
so Emily, so if we change the pricing right now and we'll add that 15%, does that also like would add up till October 25th, the taxes and everything, or it will just push out after 27th of October? Because like
Sorry,
if we
I'm just having a hard time making out what you're saying.
So I'm thinking like because like I just as like you mentioned, if somebody has booked that was 3% for like probably January or February, and what if we change the like we add that tax percentage right now in hospitable, so from moving forward in future, whosoever is booking after October 15th would be charged 15%, and before October 15th won't be charged 15%.
Okay, so a couple things. The percent markup is not added to taxes. So I think you
Okay.
said the tax. It's not a tax.
Oh,
It's yeah, a service fee. So just want to
mm-hmm.
correct the recording.
Yep.
So it's a service fee, and that is what we're marking up as a service fee, not the tax.
Okay.
And then it's October 27th, not October 15th. I think you're getting, I'm just saying this for the record of the recording. And then it
Okay.
is 15.5%.
Mm-hmm.
So that might have been why you were saying October 15th. With all of that said, after October, as soon as you make that markup change in your calendar, your rates will be marked up, but the change of the policy is not happening until October 27th, which I recommend waiting until October 27th to just put that markup into your hospitable.
But then by then, if somebody else booked for future dates, the markup would still be 3%.
Yeah, so that's what Steve had just asked is for anyone who already has made a reservation on your calendar, they've paid what they've paid. And the service fee was 3% at the time of any reservation before October 27th. So they can't kind of like pull the rug from under you and be like, haha, just kidding. We're taking your commission from you. Yeah.
Uh,
Does that answer?
yes and no. Sorry, I'm just a little confused. Like I know what Steve said. Like if somebody has already made a booking for future after October 27th, the markup fees is 3%. But what if we change it right now, and if somebody books it like any day before 27th, it would be 15%, and after 27th would be if we change it now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So any change in hospitable that you make right now gets pushed out right now because this is a live software. So if I went in and I went into my settings and I went into where you change the markup and I put this as 15.5% markup right now, my
Mm-hmm.
rates are going to mark up by 15%, but the policy hasn't changed yet. So
Yet.
the
Okay.
guest is still, the host is still going to pay 3% and the guest is still going to pay whatever percent. So that's just going to jack your rates up a ton if you do it today.
And if we don't do it and if somebody books for future, like after 27, it would cost us the difference between the markup prices.
Nope. So that's going back to Steve's question. If anyone who makes a booking right now, the policy has not changed. So
Okay.
whatever setting you have here as your markups, you could have 0%, 3%, 15%.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be what the guest pays as your nightly rate. And right now, as of today, the policy is if you have the setting where you're doing a host guest split fee, the host
Mm-hmm.
is paying 3% and the guest is paying whatever my document said, 14% or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as October 27 hits, the policy changes. So then any booking moving forward, when guests are going to book properties, they are
Mm-hmm.
not going to see a guest fee. It will disappear. So
Sure.
let's go back to traveling and I'll show that again. So if we are in traveling mode here, and this property is $592 for 2 nights. I go to reserve it. As a guest right now, I have the ability to go to the price breakdown and see, oh, well, darn, Airbnb is charging $73. And people get all upset about that. So Airbnb is starting to say, you know what, forget it. We're not going to have any fee for a guest anymore. they're just going to see their nightly rate and their taxes and their total. End of story.
So it's just gonna be, they're gonna be the good people, good, and we are gonna be the bad cops. Like good
There's
No,
cop.
no,
nothing
nobody's
bad
nobody's going to be
happening.
bad.
There's nothing
You're just
bad
going to
happening.
lose. You'll lose money if you don't change it.
Change it.
Is what's
Okay.
going
Exactly.
to happen.
But if
Yeah.
we are marking up rates, regardless, the guest is paying 14% guest
That's all.
service fee.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Are paying 3%. So now all we're doing is taking on that fee, marking up our rates, and the total is going to be no different
No.
than it would have been to the guest.
Okay.
Yes.
But if you don't
Understood.
change your 3% to 15.5%, you're going to lose
Lose. Yeah.
12.5%.
Yep.
I think
Understood.
the best thing is just set an alarm on your phone for like
Phone.
October 26th. Go into your, change your pricing for Airbnb so you don't forget, but you don't want to jack it up now because then you're going to be charging way more than your competition and probably not get bookings is I think
Agreed.
what I'm getting from this.
Yes. Yep. It's confusing. It is like you got to wrap your head around it. And, my initial reaction was the same thing, Shreya. I think it was like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to increase our rates. But in reality, we're increasing our rates only to reflect the difference of the service fee that the guest was already paying anyway. So to them, rates are not increasing. It's just a better guest experience. Honestly, frankly, as a guest, I don't want to see the service
The
fee.
breakdown.
Yeah, I
Yeah, you
really,
get mad when you see more.
yeah. And
Yeah.
that is one of Airbnb's guests' biggest complaints is fees, fees, fees. You go to book a house that says it's $100 a night, and next thing I know, I'm paying 300 for a cleaning fee, and X amount for service fees, and that's what you see all over social media, all over the internet, all over the news, and Airbnb has lost guests and loyal customers because of that. So they have listened. At the end of the day, I want Airbnb to make decisions that are going to improve their platform and improve the guest experience because the more customers coming to them, the more customers I have looking at my listing. So again, it's about that adaptability. You guys don't fall into that negative social media Facebook groups where everyone is giving incorrect, false information about this fee increase. Am seeing it everywhere where there is so much bad information about this change. So don't let that get in your head. I promise you it's all going to be okay. That's how I prefaced the call. Now you know what to do. Let's hold each other accountable in the circle group so we can all remind each other to make sure we set our rates, our markups. You guys know how to do it now. If you are not a property management system user, you're going to have to find out how to mark up your rates in whatever way you're doing pricing, whether that's on Price Labs. I'm not going to be able to demonstrate that for you today. Or if you are just not using Price Labs and not using Hospitable, I encourage you to figure out how you're going to increase your nightly rates on your Airbnb calendar. So, all of that said, do we feel better or do we feel more confused? Do we need time to let that digest? What's everyone thinking?
The only thing I can see is what'll happen is there's people that don't know that this is changing and their prices are going to go down.
Yeah.
Because when it goes to Airbnb, it's going to go down. Their price will be until they find out when Airbnb sends them their money that they were 12.5% short of what they thought they were going to get. So
Yeah.
it'll take a little bit of time. The ones that are wise and are good business people are going to know to make the change. The other ones are it'll just make a lot of just for a little bit anyways.
Yes, you're 100% right with that. And um, you know, at the end of the day, I feel like most people who are using some sort of property management system, like Hospitable, are usually the professional hosts anyway, so they've probably gotten word about what to do. There have been options to take on the entire fee this entire time, and some hosts do that. So I think it's probably, I don't want to show you guys all my tax info and all of that. I don't know where it is necessarily. because I've never changed it. But there's somewhere in your account settings that you could go and you can say this entire time of being a host, you could say, "Hey, I'm not going to make my guests pay a service fee. I'm going to take on that 15+%." And some hosts have been doing that, and they've been doing it as a way to kind of play the system and I guess utilize a feature that Airbnb would like. Um, so it's always been an option, but now it's not an option. It just is going to be the way that it is. I think that really Airbnb is trying to standardize the way that their platform works. And I think with any growing company, it's just part of it. There's some growing pains, there's some changes. We have to be adaptable. And they're making changes in the right direction. I don't see anything bad about this, except that one little thing that Steve mentioned where some hosts are gonna uh look like they just have really no low nightly rates and maybe they'll get booked. But maybe not because they may be the hosts that, don't have the good listings anyway because they're not professional. So we will see. Um
I think what you're saying now completely makes sense. And I think when the guests won't see the breakdown, I think they'll feel better and just book it quickly.
yeah, yeah. I think it'll be good. It's honestly, to me, been a positive thing since guests have not been able to see the cleaning fee. Um, I don't know. I think that there's also less leverage a guest has to say, "Oh, I know that my I paid $300 for a cleaning fee, so that gives me room to go in there and say, you know, I found this here, give me $300." Then they have the information to say what they want back if they found a dirty towel or something in the house. And they don't have that leverage anymore with knowing that breakdown and being able to kind of manipulate what they want refunded because some guests just are so up in arms about paying a cleaning fee. So even though when you stay at a hotel, you're always paying a cleaning fee, it's just never been broken up into line items. I don't know why Airbnb ever did that. So make sure you guys, let me get this bigger again. Um, Make sure with that said, you're marking up your cleaning fee 15% and you're marking up your pet fees 15%, 15.5% as well. So the reason being is if you don't, they're still going to be taking the service fee. That's all going to be wrapped up into the same nightly rate. So if we don't mark up our cleaning fees, and that is not done in hospitable, that's going to need to be done in your property management system or not here, I guess, not on this part of hospitable. You can still do that in Airbnb. You can go to let me go to a listing, try to
I was
think.
gonna say, is there a way specific just to mark up your cleaning fee for Airbnb only, versus like VRBO or something like that?
Yeah, so you can go into your calendar and let's just go to our price settings. And let's say right now my cleaning fee, whatever your cleaning fee is here, you can just increase it by however many dollars you need to increase it to make up the difference. And then same with your pet fees. So, wait, what was I showing you guys? That was the base rate. So I cannot do the math in my head for this, but if someone wants to do the math, uh, and tell me what the 15.5% would be. Um, Also for the pet fee here. So you're gonna mark it up at 15.5% so that you end up taking your pet fee amount, not less the 15.5%. So that is important. All right, we covered the tough stuff. I had a feeling that would take the bulk of our call. Before we move
So
on,
Airbnb did have the option before, you could have just taken it yourself. So if a guest was booking, they could have seen no service fees and thought that, well, this is a nicer place to book. So some people were using the strategy now they don't have that no more. So
yes, yep, exactly. Some people are already doing it. I never was. I don't know very many property managers that were. I don't know. I'd be curious. I wish I did know who was doing it and if they saw positive results the last, X amount of years. But yeah, so now we'll be simplified. which I think is great. It's actually a good thing at the end of the day. All right, you guys can probably see me looking out because I'm near a busy street, making sure no one's gonna try to tell me I need to move. Okay, so let's talk about our next policy. I know this stuff can feel kind of boring too. It's like, oh my gosh, policy. Why do I need to know this? But you just don't want to get caught accidentally doing something that you didn't mean to, that ends up harming your listing. So, one important policy is air cover. So, there is air cover for hosts and air cover for guests. I highly recommend that you familiarize yourself with what is covered as far as damage, extra cleaning, liability for hosts, and what is covered as a traveler. So guests have their own set of rights to air cover than hosts do. So certain things they can get a refund for uh, based on the policy for guests. But I'm talking about air cover for hosts. So as far as damage claims, obviously we want to do everything we can in the first place to prevent having to file a damage claim, but it's there. That's what insurance is for. Don't rely on air cover as your insurance policy. That is why we use short-term rental specific insurance such as Proper. That is a common name brand, Proper Insurance. And they will cover arbitrage. So Proper covers arbitrage. Your typical like Allstate, they may not cover arbitrage. So you've got to try to uh, get Proper, I guess is the end of the day. It's kind of, people will say it's expensive, but they actually will cover a lot of things that many other short-term rental or insurance companies will not cover at all. So at the end of the day, you're paying for peace of mind that if something did happen, you would actually have coverage. But with that said, you want to do everything you can to prevent filing a claim, such as guest screening, using rental agreements as needed, making sure you're not, accepting guests that have really poor reviews. And if something happens, which inevitably it will, something will happen. It doesn't mean you're a bad host or that you did anything wrong, but you're going to need to start a claim within 14 days of that guest checking out. And then from there, once you have drafted your claim, you will have 30 days to collect more information. So just because you have that 14-day window, let's say someone just wrecked your house and you have to get all these vendors out, you have to get all these quotes, you have to get all this extra cleaning, all the things. You have up to a month to do all of that and document it and get it sent over for the claim to be covered. But the initial submission of the claim has to be within 30 days or 14 days. So don't miss that deadline, because if you miss the 14-day deadline, no coverage, nothing. You're SOL. It's end of story, and you'll be rejected from any support. So initially, Treya, do you have a question?
Yes. So when we're talking about air cover, is this air cover just for Airbnb? Apart from that, for booking and stuff, is there anything else? Because I'm trying to, the last guest trashed my property and I have to pay a lot of cost out of pocket, and I'm trying to figure that out. But the booking.com, I'm having a very hard time with booking.com, and they're not compensating. They're just like, okay, $200 is the only thing we are. Apart from that, I'm going very back and forth because they, I'm like out of pocket cost is $600 for me currently.
So what is your question? Just so I make sure I answer it right. Because
That
okay.
the air cover that you're just talking about is just for the Airbnb.
Air cover is for Airbnb.
Airbnb.
Yes. So we would not have air cover for VRBO or
So,
booking.com because it's a totally separate online
mhm.
travel agency. So
So
Airbnb
is
is
there
an
any,
OTA, VRBO is an OTA, booking.com is an OTA. Totally
so
separate.
do they have anything like for booking and VRBO? Do you have any advice or anything, or
Yeah, I don't give advice about booking.com. VRBO has damage policies. I encourage you to go on your listing and review their guest damage policies. They contract out, I think, with an insurance company labeled Janali, I believe. And you get to decide if you take a deposit or a damage waiver, all of the different options there. So you need to go into your VRBO and determine which uh, policy you want to select. And then there are lots and lots of, it's like an endless amount of companies available that offer insurance outside of your main insurance, like proper, because you're always going to have a deductible to meet for proper insurance because that's the way insurance works. But
Mm-hmm.
when you have things, for an example, a sister company to proper is called Waivo, Waivo. I believe I've chatted about this on past calls.
Okay.
That is an example. Superhog is an example. Happy Guest is an example. There's tons and tons and tons of options for
Okay.
insurance, which
Mm-hmm.
if you're listing on booking.com, you should have that. You should never ever list on there without a separate third party insurance for yourself, or you'll pay out of pocket. Um,
I
also,
think I'm gonna do that. Okay.
yeah, so I would just look that up. You can
Okay.
search Waivo, Waivo, and what was I gonna say with that? Oh, that way, it also improves the guest experience when you have kind of that third party insurance for smaller things like I don't think they will cover extra cleaning. Some do, some don't. I'm not a representative for any of these companies, so I cannot speak on their behalf. But um, let's say something gets broken and you submit it to this third party insurance. That way, you never have to file a claim with air cover. And just so you know, anytime you file a claim within that 14-day windows, it
Mm-hmm.
goes to the guest first. So this doesn't really apply to your situation right now because you have an issue on booking.com, but on
Mm-hmm.
Airbnb, air cover always will send the claim to the guest first.
First.
Airbnb will say, hey, you guys broke this. The host is saying you owe X amount. What do you think about this? Will you pay it? And then the guest usually 90% of the time is going to fight it. And
No.
all you
Yep.
ever need to do is decline it and say, nope, didn't do it. And then it gets passed off to the department that handles air cover. So it's a
Perfect.
poor guest experience. At the end of the day, like if I have damaged sheets and damaged towels, it's kind of in some aspects cost of doing business. Maybe there was no ill intent. And do I want to reach out to the guest and say, hey, you stained my bedding or my towels? No. So in those instances, it would be way easier to just submit that to your third party insurance. They will reimburse you for it, and then the guest never knew about it. And that's super helpful. Um, but
I
obviously, there's still room
was-
for towels.
Emily, I was gonna ask, do you have any advice
Hmm?
on when to, if you need to, file a claim I was gonna ask if you needed to file a claim, is there any advice in regards to strategic timing because guests can leave a review and trying to be mindful while not missing the 14-day window, but also not um irritating them where they can leave, what some may say a retaliatory review or something like that. Like, do you have any advice on how to navigate?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you definitely don't want to, if the guest has not left you a review yet, you don't want to slap them with a claim because they're going to see that claim and then probably want to leave you a review in retaliation. And it's very difficult to get any reviews removed. It's very difficult to prove retaliation. So good luck. So exactly that. If once the guest has left a review for you, you can leave a review for them, and then both reviews are posted. Once reviews are posted, no one can change their review. The only thing that can be done is a review can be taken down, but that's another story. So if a guest has damaged your house and 3 days later after they check out, they write their review, go ahead and write yours, and then let them post and then submit your claim. Because once they're posted, you can never change it. So if the guest never leaves a review, then you're waiting until the very last day to file that claim so that the guest has very minimal time to then open up their Airbnb and say, well, I'm going to leave them a review and because I'm mad. So,
They can only write one review and you can only write one review.
yep.
So if they write you a nice one, you write them a bad one, they can't come back and start making a conversation to be you bad now. So
Yeah. And that's the beauty of the review system is it's double blind. So, neither party knows if they're getting a good review or a bad review. And that's how it should be in the review system. So, you know, with that said, there's kind of this controversy around, some people will say the guest has written their review, they trashed my house, I'm gonna write them a review and I'm just gonna leave them a good review and then file the claim so that they'll be more likely to just pay it instead of being all upset that I wrote them a bad review. I don't think that's good practice. I think that is uh, leading future hosts astray because then a good positive review will post on that person's account. So it is Airbnb policy. It is in their terms of service that we need to leave honest reviews as hosts. Obviously, reviews are opinion based, but I don't encourage doing that. I encourage being honest. Whenever you leave a review, you must be objective. You cannot say, so and so was the worst person. They were so rude and they made my house stink. You know, you have to be professional. You have to be objective. You can only state facts. If you state anything else in any other way, your review can be taken down. So it's kind of funny how the tables are turned a little bit because guests can write it whatever they want, but this is the industry that we're in. And it's just the way of the world. So keep everything factual so that it's not overly dramatic or emotional. If you had a really rough stay, I highly recommend giving it a minute before you write your review so you're not overly emotional when you're writing yours, because you can come off as retaliatory as well. And reviews that you have written for guests will show up on, they're out there. So if someone wants to see what you have said about other guests too, they can. So to answer your question, Dana, yeah, I would wait for the guest to write. I love when that happens, when a guest does something and then they've already written their review. I'm like, great, let's get it over with. I'll write mine, the reviews post, and then I can move on with filing my claim. And then in the instance that the guest never leaves a review, you've got kind of a countdown. You need to be aware of that countdown. It is so you don't want to wait until midnight of the 14th day because in Airbnb's eyes, that is past checkout time. So you want to work backwards from the 14th day, probably submitting that claim before midnight of the 14th day is my recommendation to play it safe, which still leaves a little wiggle room for the guest to be able to retaliate by writing a review, but you can also probably demonstrate that timestamp of, well, I put this claim in and then I got this review that was poor. You might have some wiggle room with trying to get a review taken down with that, but I'm not totally sure. So, yes, good question, Dana. Okay. Now let's talk about um so these are just quick ones. I would understand the policies on guest standards and house rules. So I think it's I don't know what they call it. It might be it's not code of conduct. Something along those lines, but what are it's ground rules. There's ground rules for guests and there's ground rules for hosts. So you want to understand those and know what can be reasonably expected for guests and what is reasonably expected from hosts. So make sure, if you're a host and you want to say, well, my ground rules are that the guest has to clean all the linens, take out all the trash and wash all the windows and the floors and everything, it may not be lining up with the ground rules for hosts. So ground rules for hosts also include things like host can't just show up out of nowhere on the property. There needs to be advance notice, just like with any tenant situation. You can't just pop in because you're the owner of the house and say, hey, unless that's agreed upon with the guest. All right, we talked about service animals and emotional support animals. So, read these policies, you guys. Definitely Worth knowing that you can legally only ask 2 questions. Those questions are, do you require the animal because of a disability, and what work or task is the animal trained to perform? Just know, I mean, even these questions in some ways may or may not feel invasive. And if that guest does end up booking with you, it may already kind of be setting things off on an awkward foot. So you need to weigh the balances of if you are going to ask these questions or not. A guest can still lie. If they're going to lie, they can still lie when you ask those questions. So just determine if you want to take that extra step, go back, read their reviews. If you've ever seen reviews from previous hosts that say that the animal that they brought, you know, had an accident inside or whatever, then maybe ask your questions. And you may have more grounds for not hosting that person, but I wouldn't mess around with the service animal laws. It's not worth it. Um, okay. Let's do so let's talk about cancellation policies. So this is a new update that's going into effect as of October 1st. I actually need to refresh myself on this because they announced this months ago. But here's the thing, Airbnb right now has like 4 different options for hosts to choose their cancellation policy, from very flexible, basically guest gets a full refund up until the day of their stay, all the way to strict, where the guest has 48 hours to cancel and no refund whatsoever for any reason after that, no matter how far out the booking is or how far out close the cancellation is. So, they are, again, as we talked about at the beginning of the call, trying to standardize their systems. And although this platform is really a variety of hosts with a variety of properties, different styles, and levels of professionalism, Airbnb is doing everything in their control to standardize that. And so they're giving hosts less options to be super, super strict. I think they're completely removing that. So if you're a host who's had a super, super strict cancellation policy, you've probably been falling lower in the algorithm, possibly. Um, so the new policy is that there's a new 24-hour window where reservations that are booked more than 7 days before check-in can be canceled. Very similar to when, I just went and booked a flight via Southwest, and you get your confirmation email and it says if you need to cancel or make changes within 24 hours, you are free to do so with no charges. I actually think that's great. I think that's fabulous because sometimes there are mistakes that are made and we're all human. And I've had that happen before where someone says, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. I booked the wrong dates. And then as hosts, we're kind of put in these awkward positions of, well, do I slap down my policy? What do I do? This will standardize it and give everyone 24 hours. Maybe they want to get the address and look up the neighborhood. And then if they determine, actually, you know what, this is so far from our destination, they still have room to cancel. I think that's fine. I'd rather that happen than someone get to my property and be unhappy with where they were because they didn't have those options. So I think this is good. The new policy is going to simplify the strict options. So on October 1st, you'll need to pick the lightest policy that you can, and it will impact your conversion rates. It's like a known thing. The more strict your policy is, the less bookings you're going to get. It's just the way of, there's so much inventory right now. So if guests are choosing between 2 properties and one of those properties, they're essentially the same price, same amenities, they'll probably choose the one that has the more flexible cancellation policy over the one that does not, because things happen. So, um, okay, refunds. I don't think this is new, but any qualifying issues based on air cover for guests are entitled to a refund within 72 hours. So things like smells, these are often common scams, so you need to be aware of that. And if there are any funky smells in your home, it needs to be documented, or maybe you have a way somehow where your cleaner documents that everything is smelling fresh and clean, because that's a common scam, is that guests, it's really difficult to prove a smell. So be aware of that. Okay, so this is not a new policy, but this applies to both Airbnb and VRBO. The policies are a little bit different on both. I'm primarily reviewing Airbnb policies today, but definitely go on VRBO and look at their host cancellation policy. So you will if you cancel, let's say someone books your property right now during this call, and you say, "Oh, my rates were too low. I didn't want to get that booking. I'm not on top of my pricing. You know, they booked it for 100 a night, but I wanted to get 300 a night for the holiday or whatever." Too bad, so sad. That is your fault, and you cannot go in and cancel that reservation, because it is way too common that hosts do things like that, and it is a terrible guest experience, and it is so unprofessional. So if you mess up, and you know, in this example I have, and you say, you know what, I'm canceling the booking, I'll get it rebooked. You don't have that opportunity. Airbnb says, no way. You are now getting those calendar dates blocked so that they cannot get rebooked, and you're getting hit with a fine, and you'll have to pay that fine. So I guess, you know, stay on top of your pricing. Don't have that be a reason why you cancel. What you do need to do is look up the policy and know the reasons that cancellations are okay. So let's say a guest is scheduled to stay at your property, and you have all a pipe bursts and you've got water everywhere. Well, that is an excusable reason to cancel a stay. So you're going to need to prove it. You're going to need to have professional invoicing, professional estimates, documentation that that happened. You can't just think that you're going to be able to say you have a pipe burst and Airbnb is going to be like, okay, sure. You're going to have to prove it. And then you'll have to manually block your dates for that, but you won't be fined, and your listing will not be punished, I think is the best way to put it in the algorithm. So don't cancel stays. Anyone who has canceled a stay on a guest has impacted their, for a non-legitimate reason, has definitely impacted their booking conversion. So do everything you can to avoid that. And obviously, when things come up, make sure you're documenting everything appropriate if you do need to cancel a stay, so that you don't get penalized. Same with VRBO. Okay, so parties are another policy. This was a big action that was being taken because, again, it was a huge reason why hosts were dropping the platform. Airbnb was kind of getting this reputation that they're, you know, just known for parties, and parties are completely banned. So you have to be really careful if you are hosting guests and they are having a party, because the natural instinct is to just immediately call Airbnb and say that there's a party at your property. That can potentially put you at risk, because you're saying there's a party. So you may be under a safety and security investigation. Sometimes your listing may be temporarily paused. So there are kind of other ways that you can go about getting assistance from Airbnb if there is a party. But definitely, you guys, I see it happen way too often where someone books the property, they've got no reviews, they say something like, "Oh, we're just having a family-friendly baby shower." And the host just says, "Okay, great," doesn't ask any questions. And then the next thing they know, there's balloons, confetti, glitter, loud music, and that's a party. So, you've got to have the right kind of screening measures to avoid that. And if guests are blatantly asking you if they can host a party, just say no. It's not worth it. It's just, to me, it's not worth it. Um, okay. Cameras. Oh yeah, this is a big one. There was tons of flack on the internet where Airbnb was getting this reputation that there's cameras inside, and there's still people that believe that. There can be hidden cameras anywhere. So, um, it's funny to kind of hear the opinion sometimes of people kind of associating that with Airbnb, but there were some bad hosts doing bad things, and so a policy had to be slapped down, and they take it very, very, very seriously. You should never ever have a camera inside, and your cameras cannot be outside pointing inside. So if you've got a backyard and the back of your house has tons of windows and you've got a camera pointing right inside that house, you can get delisted from the platform in a heartbeat, no questions asked. So know the directions of your cameras. The cameras have to be disclosed. And when I say disclosed, they need to be on your listing description in the safety and security section. And then for safe measure, also put it in your house rules or somewhere else on your listing so that it is very clear that you have cameras. that is also just common knowledge, I think, no brainer to disclose cameras, because the last thing you would want is for someone to show up and feel like they were misled. And it may deter somebody from booking your property that was going to try to hide things. So I think at this point, if you're a host and you don't have any type of security camera, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's really for safety at the end of the day, and it's for your guests' safety. So if someone tries to break into your property when a guest is there, that guest has some security, you know. So there's also protection on the guest end for that. Um, I don't know about these being a policy, but I did want to just chat about safety basics. So we talked about cameras and then smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, fire extinguishers, and this all needs to be added that you have these things in your listing. I don't know if Airbnb has a specific policy that says you have to have these items. I don't think that they do, but it wouldn't surprise me if soon enough they are going to require it. I know a lot of counties are now requiring inspections where all of these safety features need to be tested, just like a commercial property would need to have safety features tested. So, and then, okay, you guys, trip insurance is a policy. Um, I would familiarize yourself with longer term stays and know tenants' rights in your area so you don't take a 6-month booking without any protection, such as a lease or rental agreement. Um, the list goes on and on. I mean, there are a million policies. I'll stop, talking your ear off and boring you guys with all the policies. I would like the takeaway from this call to be that it is your responsibility to know these policies, or your property manager or co-host or whatever. And there's very little room for error with the really big ones that we mentioned, like safety, security cameras. There's no room for error with claims if you submit it incorrectly or at the wrong time. So just review it. And the links to the articles are super easy to find. If you go on, let me see if I can drop it in the chat. Airbnb.com/help. Yeah, it's all airbnb.com/help. And you can find all of the policies there. They're super, I would say, easy to read and review. So I dropped that in the chat for you guys. But okay, I'll stop talking. What questions do we have or what comments? How are you guys
I think
feeling?
the other one too, is also about like communication with the guest and direct, like trying to get information from them,
Yes.
emails or contact or direct booking, and like, I don't know how to lead them to social media. I know we've talked about stuff like this and doing it in a safe way where you're not going to be flagged.
You're so right, Dana. I can't believe I forgot that one. That is that is a very important one. And that was a big update a few months ago. I seriously can't believe that one slipped my mind. So yes, the policy is it is off-platform communications. Let me see if I can type it in. Off-platform policy, I think, is what it's called. And if I can pull it up, I'll drop it in the chat because that's a big one. Um, Off-platform, paying and communicating through Airbnb. So you guys can type that in and read through those. But yes, you can't, if a guest says, hey, I'm really interested in booking your property, I'd like to stay for a month, and then you respond and you say, great, let me try to text you and we can just book this, through Zelle. You can pay me through Zelle. You'll get flagged and you can't even type those words if a booking has not been made. But if you also try to do that when a booking has been made, you are putting your listing at risk for taking off platform, which I understand because Airbnb has, essentially in some ways rights to that commission because they found the client. And we don't want to be, setting ourselves up for failure with that. If you have the guest's phone number after the fact and you try to just say, hey, I'm going to give the guest a call and say, do you want to just pay me on Zelle? You can cancel your booking on Airbnb and save on the fees. Well, that's not going to work anymore because they're not going to see the fees. And then you also, when a guest goes to cancel, they have to select a reason. And one of those reasons that they can select is, did your host ask you to cancel? And then they will have to answer that. And you don't know these people. Maybe they say, yes, my host asked me to cancel. And then there's room for them to put information. And maybe the guest says, the host asked me to pay them through Zelle. You're getting shut down if you do that. It's not, there's no questions asked. So thank you, Dana, for bringing that up. That's a big one. So any other questions or comments before we jump off, guys? You guys are great. Shreya, great questions. Dana, thank you so much for your questions. Steve, great questions. Everyone else listening, appreciate you being here. I made it without getting someone coming up to my car here. So my Starlink pulled through too. It's fabulous to have. If you don't have Starlink and you like to travel, I highly recommend it. It's awesome. Cool. That's all I have, you guys. We'll see you guys on the
Thank you,
call next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.